Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's happening?
Man, welcome back to Ministry Talks Podcast. We are back from a holiday break, which we told you guys we were going to be doing. So I feel like it's only fitting, as I know this is coming at the end of January, but it's still the beginning of the year. So we want to say Happy New Year to you. And then everything, that we want to keep you guys up to date with. If you missed it, listen, we are now on Apple Podcast. That's exciting. So if you are listening to us and maybe you don't have access to that, get access to it to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, go to YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us, stay updated on everything that we have going on here. Not to mention that you can always email us, because we've heard some great content and some great just response to what you guys are loving. And so we appreciate that. So you can email us at mintalkspodcast@gmail.com. Just to even give you guys a quick update as we get into episode 5 here, the topic is money. Let's talk about it. And before I pass it to Pastor West, just giving you guys some life updates about what's going on in the Robinson household. I'm in school still, so that has not changed. The only thing that has changed is that I am now full time. So I will be graduating next May. And so I am officially a junior, which is crazy to think about. I'm doing all my Bible classes, my theology classes. And so I'm just excited about what this new year is holding. Bella's getting ready to graduate in June, and we will have 2 officially graduated out of school, with Zerø on the tail end being full time. So, that's all I have.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
What about you, man? What's going on?
The construction on the church facility has begun.
Wow.
We have some stuff going down since the bomb cyclone back in November. Now here we are, late January, finally getting some of the work done.
Yeah.
The much needed repairs. And so, that's been really exciting, because there's always an era of excitement with something new, or with something, gets to change. And so that's been pretty cool. In the Henry household, man, things are going really well. Cole, my boy, he's about to step back into actual high school. Going to walk them halls now. Come on,
smell that cafeteria food and how great it is.
Exactly right. I've been smoking some meat, because I got my little indoor smoker now. So I've been smoking some meat. I've been experimenting with a bunch of stuff. So I'm eating real good. Oh yeah, man.
We've been having some cold days, so I'm pretty sure you're thankful right now for that.
I am, dude. Look, I'm even in my garage, but that thing, I can stand by it like it's a little fire and be like, "Ooh, this is good." Look.
I also noticed too, man. You got an indoor gym that you're building on and doing.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
I got a nice little elliptical. I got some weights going down. Me and the boy were working out a little bit, and it's been good, man. It's been good.
That's cool, man. So, Pastor West, we don't want to waste any time, and we just wanted to catch up. But season 9, episode 5, here we are.
Yeah.
It's money. Let's talk about it. If you are just now catching up, you're going to have to go back into season 9, episode 1, because what we've been talking about is how come the church is not operating in the fivefold ministry? What can we do in that space? And so I feel like, because this episode is intentional about everything church, let's talk about the finances when it comes to church. Let's get into that space. And, I guess how we can show people we're trying to be good stewards, me from a youth and young adult pastor budget perspective, you from an overall pastoral budget perspective. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So, many people, and I know I've said this before, but many people don't realize that church is actually a business. Like, churches are a business, right?
Yeah.
We got money coming in and money going out. But the thing that's different with churches as a business, other than just like, say, a secular business, is we are called to be good stewards of all of the funds that come in.
That's right.
I can't get into all of the details, but basically, if you were to read in Numbers chapter 18, you'll see that the tithe was made to be able to support those who work in the church. Yeah. But the thing is, God continues on that, and he says, listen, those of you who receive the tithe, you still have to tithe. Wow. Right. So it goes all the way up. Right. So what we have to do is we need to be some good stewards. And so I actually started an entire series this year called Entrusted, A Journey Towards Stewardship. And we've been talking about how we are supposed to be good stewards of the things that God gives us, be it money or attention or people or all of that kind of stuff. But man, when we touched on money, typically you mention money and everybody kind of goes,
yeah, they get kind of
quiet. They all get quiet. They're like, oh man, why are you going to talk about my money?
Yeah.
The reality is it's not your money. It's not. Ooh.
Say that
right,
again.
God. It's not your money. God has given us the ability to gain wealth. Right, you see that in Proverbs. And in Deuteronomy, we know that everything comes from God. Right, we see that in Ecclesiastes. Mm-hmm. And so, being thankful and being grateful, and then being a good manager of the things that God gives you is super important. And so, some churches do that better than others. And I'm just leave it at that. Some churches do that better than others.
I agree.
And so from a budget perspective, and yes, a budget is your friend. Is this thing on? Did I say that loud enough for the people in the back?
I can hear you.
A budget is your friend. If you don't tell your money where to go, it's just going to find some place to go.
That's good.
So that's why a budget is so important.
Yeah.
Including for a church. A church runs on a budget. When the money comes in, because if it's God's will, it's his bill and he sends it, then it's our responsibility to put it where it belongs, to be a good steward of it, to be prayerfully considerate of all the things that he wants us to do with that. And so, man, we run on a budget here. We actually we know where every penny goes to. Yeah. And for transparency's sake, we have X amount of people who count the offering. We have X amount of people who deposit the offering, right? There are checks and balances. We have an outside CPA, so we don't do all of our own, creative financing. Let's put it that way. There's everything's supposed to be above board, and or the word says above reproach, right? And that also includes finances. And so when we do that type of thing, we can be good stewards of what it is that God has actually given us. And so that the important part is that we obey the word, right? That we honor the Lord with our finances. That actually is, you can find that in Proverbs chapter 3, Amen. Right? Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all of your crops, and then your barns will be filled to overflowing, right? And your vats of wine will be full to the brim, that kind of thing. So that's paraphrased, but that's Proverbs chapter 3.
No, and I love that.
It's something that Pastor Jennifer and I have always lived by, both in our personal finances, but also since we're running a church, since we've been, have this call, we have this responsibility. Yeah. We want to make sure that everything is accounted for. We want people to be able to trust that when they give to God, they're not giving to Pastor Wes.
That's it, man.
Right? They're giving to God, and Pastor Wes is the one who says, "Hey, God, what do you want us to do with this?" And so, it's a big deal, man. It's a really big deal.
You have said so much to the point where I feel like we could just hang up and go home, but we're not going
Amen. That's good preaching.
But a couple things stand out to me here. A budget is your friend. Yeah. And I think if we're not trying to tell you how to spend your money. But sometimes I think when we're in church as pastors and we start talking about upgrades or the building campaign or things of that nature, the roles can be quickly switched to where now you're trying to tell us how we need to spend the money. And that's great. But I think there's two perspectives. Like, we are asking for you to catch the heart of generosity. Mm-hmm. And as we can ask you to catch the heart of generosity, I tell our young people downstairs that we are to be good stewards, which is based out of Luke chapter 16, verse 10 through 12. And we'll get to that. But I think when I'm looking at the generation of young people who I've been asked to pastor, if I can teach them how to catch the heart of generosity, greed won't trap them later. Right. And I feel like I've said that before in a later episode or in an earlier episode, but for redundant sake, I'm going to sound redundant, and that's fine. I think what we need to do as a church, Big C Church, is start talking about finances more and why that's important. But if we can talk about it in a healthy way and why, tithing and stewardship is so important, because people hear tithing and they think we want your money, but tithing is a principle. Tithing is a command. Tithing is something that God is encouraging us to do, not so then that way we can reap a benefit, but then that way we can be shown as good stewards of the finances of his people. And I wish more churches would talk about it, just as it's important to talk about your faith, and I think your finances and faith go hand in hand, just like it's important to talk about relationships, just like it's important to talk about serving. We have to also highlight why it's important to give. I remember we did an episode, how people should on people, or people, you got to be careful where you should on people, right? We're not telling you anything that's going to hurt you. We're trying to tell you something that's going to be a benefit to help you serving the local church. So you serving, and guess what? Luke chapter 16, verse 10, it's not just a financial scripture. You can use that at stewarding over your time and stewarding over, the things like, are you stewarding over your home? Are you cleaning it? Are you doing the things that you need to do? So when I think about how the scripture tells us, a man that cannot take care of his home cannot be trusted to take care of my home. You and I have been given, through the gifting of God and through the leading of that, we've been gifted the title to be a pastor, shepherd. But we also have to make sure we're doing that well in every aspect and area of our life, not just giving great biblical doctrine that's good, but that also includes difficult conversations when it comes to finances. So let me ask you this question. Why aren't churches doing more of a tithing series? And sub question, should churches be doing a series on teaching about tithing?
Right. I think a lot of smaller churches, and by smaller churches, I mean 100 people or less, right? The bigger churches somehow seem to have no problem with asking everybody for money. And then there's that borderline where, do you know if it's going to the right stuff, right? They got 15 people on staff and 4 LED walls, and they've got the biggest, bestest espresso machine in the foyer. And if that's what it takes, then by all means, you have to answer to God for those things. But that also means that I have to answer to God for those things as well. And so when I say I'm speaking to smaller churches, I think many of us don't always talk about money a whole lot, because we know that it turns people off.
That's good.
Right. We know that as soon as we go from preaching to meddling, you know, that old Southern phrase, he's gone from preaching to meddling. I just wish the pastor would stay out of my wallet. Okay, listen. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21, Jesus knows that the biggest thing that's going to contend for your heart from him or with him is the wallet, is the pocketbook. That's why he says, for where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Right. So what you value the most is where your heart is going to be. It's what you're going to give your time and your attention and all of that other stuff to. And so, the churches that don't talk about it, I think a lot of it has to do with the idea of offending people, right? Because we don't want people to tell us what to do with our own money. Yeah. But here's the flip side of that coin. We don't want people to tell us that we are not trusting God with our money.
That's right.
Right. So you get a pastor up there who's saying, hey, if you're having a hard time trusting God, then he's having a hard time trusting you.
And there's no lie in that statement.
And exactly. And so when we have a hard time trusting God with the finances that he's already given us. Now, remember, he's already given us everything, right? I used to preach in a finance series. We have because God gave.
That's good.
Right. We have salvation because he gave his only son. We have food because he gave us the earth to go plant and till and to work and toil. He gives us friends. He gives us family. He gives us the Holy Spirit. All of those things he's already given us. Yeah. So it's our job then to give back to God. And that giving back isn't saying, like, we're not tipping God going, hey, God, thanks a lot. And we're, toss him a coin, toss him a denarii or whatever. No, it's saying, I trust you. Yeah. I want to say thank you, right? It's an act of worship. It's an act of obedience. It's an act of saying, God, I can't do it without you.
That's good.
And so giving that money to him is actually a huge, I mean, it's a huge response of trust and faith to do that with God. And then to answer your second question, should we be talking about it? Yes, absolutely. At least twice a year. Well, why twice a year? Well, one, because people ebb and flow and come and go, and they don't always, make it to every 52 weeks of the year that you're preaching. True. And so if you only preach on it one time, 1 week in 52 weeks, then people aren't going to hear it. Not everybody's going to hear it. But then two, I think Pastor West thinks that it is one of the biggest barriers to spiritual growth that people have yet to overcome. It's 2025, people. Why are we not trusting God with finances yet? It's 2025. It's time to say, God, this is all yours anyway. You just got to tell me what to do with it, and I will do it. I'll do what you say. Why are we having such a hard time with that? And so, I think we need to be bold enough to say, you guys have yet to learn to trust God, but then they have to give them, here's the steps. Here's how you can trust God. If you can't do 10%, no big deal. What about one time? When's the last time you actually gave something? What did you give? What heart did you give it in? Ooh. Right? If you have done that, how about let's give consistently a little bit? Can you give once a month for 6 months, right? Build that consistency, right? And see, we're taking this journey to where we start to trust God one time, and then we let him show up, and then we start to trust God a little more, and then we let him show up. And then you jump into, hey, you know what, God, I'm going to try this tithing thing. I'm going to give you 10%, and I'm going to watch you do more with 10% than what I can do with 90. Come on, that math don't make no sense.
Bro, I was just sitting here thinking that exact phrase, that God can do more with my 10 than I think I can do with the whole 100.
Yep, exactly. And then once you're into that and you watch God do things in your life, okay, case in point, I'm going to keep the names out, but there's a family in our church who he just recently got hired at a particular job. Before then, there was so much sporadic giving, right? It was a little here, a little there. If we can afford it, maybe I think, then they took the step of faith and said, God, we are going to trust you. And we are going to begin to tithe at this new job. We're just going to tithe. We're just going to do it 10%. They have been faithful every paycheck, and God has opened massive doors for them like they never thought would happen before. And it's because they started trusting God. In Malachi, it's the only place God says to trust me. Trust me with the tithe and watch what I will do. It's the only place God says, trust me. So,
and just to give biblical, context to what we're talking about here, and I told you I was going to read it, so I want to read it to honor that and honor our time. I'm reading out of the NIV translation. So Luke chapter 16 verse 10 through 12 says, whoever
it's good.
He says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? And when I read this, and when we speak it every Wednesday, I'm asking the kids to give whatever they have.
Right.
I'm not expecting much, but what I have seen God do in the hearts of our young people in the last 5 years is I've seen some significant offerings that have come.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow. And it's not because I'm trying to force it down their throat. What I'm trying to get them and catch them, or what I'm trying to get them to grasp is, this is not just Pastor Isaiah's youth ministry. This is our youth ministry.
Yeah.
We have been given a task, Heather and I, 5 years ago when we came back on staff, to remodel and upgrade the room. I have grown up at River of Life. So the comments that I say next, I can say it because I've lived it. But that youth room has looked the exact same since it was when I was in that youth room in 2001 and 2002. And now I have gone through middle school, high school, college program, internship, and it has just looked the same. The only thing that has changed is that we've gotten rid of some old tube TVs, and we mounted, case in point, a TV and thought like, okay, great. But Heather and I have been given a certain amount of money that we can spend each month that will allocate to the amount that's been given to the end of the year. Okay. Right. Isaiah, you and Heather can spend this amount of money every month for Purpose 828 Youth Ministry. You and Heather can spend this amount of money every month for Rise of a Generation Young Adults. We have stewarded over that really well. But off to the side, there has been a nice little nugget that's been there that if and when the time comes, you can change this room, that money is allotted for that. And in 5 years, okay, I want you to understand, it has taken us 5 years to prayerfully walk through, really consider this room is built a certain way, so we cannot make any drastic changes. But what we can do is upgrade some cosmetics around this room that will help make it look and feel not like 2002. And like I said to you offline, we are getting rid of some stuff. And so I'm saying that because our board and our pastors and the staff know that Heather and I have done everything by the book. When we go to summer camp, we are always in good shape. We've never lost money, and we don't even do summer camp to make money. Everything that we get, we just dump it back into the kids. We have seen God do so much with that. For example, we do our Famsgiving every year. Right. We as the church, as the youth ministry, we provide the protein, like the 2 turkeys, all that stuff. But we've got amazing leaders that are like, they'll bring sides, they'll cook this, they'll cook that. So now we've got a home cooked meal because everybody has bought in. So in the beginning of the year, I told the kids, I told everybody, we are going to get rid of these 4 TVs. We are going to now move into getting a projector. We are now going to get some things upgraded. We're going to change the way the stage looks. We're going to add a side for the drums to go sit on. So now the entire stage looks open. So I'm sitting and I'm talking with leaders that have been there for years. Hey, what do you want to see? How can we enhance this place? And watch this. We had this conversation. And then the following week, the construction started. We are now in a youth room that's under construction. I had youth service last night. There's an area that's been taped off because we're getting everything sanded down, everything added on. I don't mind working under construction because under construction shows that there's work being done, but it also shows that what I said we were going to do, we're going to do it. So if you're wondering how we're financially doing this, the proof is right behind me underneath this construction. And this doesn't just help impact the youth ministry. Our kids ministry uses that room. There's other ministries that use that room. So now when everybody goes in there and they're seeing that this place is now getting an upgrade, and now we're now putting our money where our mouth is, now our young people don't have a problem giving. Right. We're getting ready to have a youth lock-in next month. We purchased a PS5 for the kids for Christmas. But once again, that's because what we do throughout the year to handle our finances is to make big ticket purchases, not for us, but for them. We buy stuff for our student store. We're not trying to capitalize on the student store. We're just trying to buy little odds and ends snacks for the kids to have something to buy. And can I tell you, we've even went as far as to purchase the chip reader, the whatever that thing is. Yeah. Not the little square. It's like a little gadget. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it just, you put the little, you know what I'm talking about? That thing, whatever that thing's called. We purchased it. Okay. We purchased it because kids were like, man, I got a Cash App card. I got this kind of card. So we don't want you to Cash App us the money because that's not a good look. Right. And I'm not going to let you Cash App me money that you're trying to buy something for the church. So what I'm going to do is write an IOU. You just going to have to come back and give me the money for them Twizzlers and for that gum. You know what I'm saying? And we told the kids, hey, we got these upgrades. You know how many kids was over here slapping their little Cash App card? Like, oh, you got this, you got that. I told Heather, I'm like, we probably gonna have to go back to the store. Right. What I'm saying is, in verse 12, to highlight this, and I'll give this back to you, Pastor West, it says, and if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, when we're asking you to give, I'm wanting you to see that we can be trusted with the money that you have given and sown into this project. Right. And when you see the construction paper, when you see areas being tarped and roped off, it's because we want you to see every step in every phase of what we're doing. And it also says who will give you property of your own. This home that we have, like, I'm even hearing you right now in the back very faintly. You guys are under construction. I'd rather them hear the construction that you're under than them trying to figure out, man, what they doing over there at Hope Church? Man, what they doing over there at River of Life Fellowship? We're under construction. Things are being worked on. And guess what? We are working on this by you contributing. And if you don't contribute, We don't hear this noise. We don't see this construction. So I love the fact that we need to talk about this twice a year, because once is not enough to plant the seed. So I'm sorry, man, I went on a rant, but
no, that's great, man.
I think we have to get to a place of being transparent and honest and showing that we are being good stewards. We're trying to tell you to be a good steward. Now I want you to see that we're being good stewards. And I'll show you the pictures of the construction. I'll text you offline what that looks like. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we say here at Hope Church, one of the things I've said since I was a senior pastor, right? Doesn't matter the church. This is my second senior pastorate. The thing that I say all the time is this: if you want to see the books, make an appointment. I will show you everything. We have nothing to hide, because we're here trusting God, right? We're not here trying to, like Pastor West doesn't have a different vehicle every month or every year, because I'm not out there trying to get, like, I get a salary. My wife she has an outside job, like, so she gets her salary from a different job, right? We have to be good stewards of our actual own finances.
Right.
And so here's what happens when you trust God. Here's what happens. This is a bold declaration, Pastor West. I think I feel something strange coming on. Listen, telling you, here's what happens when you trust God. Our personal finances have zero debt.
Come on.
And we have worked hard. There's my thumbs up. Yeah, go Apple. Okay. We have zero debt, and we have zero consumer debt on purpose. Do we have a mortgage? Yes, absolutely. Because we have to, we own a house, but we have zero consumer debt. Yeah. The church has zero consumer debt, and we don't have any carrying, rotating debt. We pay our bills as we get them, and there's money in the bank. So when people give to Hope Church, they know that we see salvations. They know that we have baptisms. They know that we go out and do the Hope Street team.
Right.
They know that we don't just frivolously spend money. Like, I've wanted an LED wall for years. Yeah. I don't think the technology is where it needs to be without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. And guess what? I am too cheap for that mess. Okay.
I'm mad at
like, get me a $7,000 projector. That's all I need. Right.
And to be honest with you, that move right there.
Yeah.
Is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. Let
me say this. We just did that.
Right.
We went as far, and check this out. Let me tell you what happens when you are doing things biblically correct. Reached out to a gentleman in our church who owns a business with painting, got resources with guys with drywall, the whole nine. Comes in because he's doing this job with excellence. We, instead of buying the projector screen, that's like $5,000. We just got the projector, and I shared that price with you. Mm-hmm. Now, what we did was buy the projector paint. It's about
that high def. Yeah.
It's about $200, $300 a gallon. So we got 3 gallons. Mm-hmm. We got the entire wall textureless. That's going to pretty much just be like a smooth surface.
Yep.
So now, instead of having a projector screen, we now will have a wall that will have the projector.
Nice.
But this means we have to take the next step at stewarding over what's just been provided.
Yep.
I reached out to our kids' pastor. I said, Pastor Jen, I know we allowed you guys to use this riser that the drums used to be on, because we are spending this amount of money and because we want to make sure we take care of this stage correctly and not mess up the wall. We want to take the drums now off the stage and put them on the riser off the stage. Is it possible that we get that back for a long-term outcome? She said yes, without hesitation. She said, because I agree with what you're doing, and the steps that you're trying to take is to ensure that this wall lasts a long time. Here's something else I want to add to what you're saying. We made this purchase on this projector. I asked the guy, because we're spending X amount of dollars on this, can we please get an extended warranty at a good rate? Because this is a lot of money that we're dropping, and I want to make sure that hear me when I say this. I'm not saying that I'm leaving next year, because we're going to be youth pastors till we can't be youth pastors no more. But in the event, I want to set this up. If something were to happen down the road, I'm not leaving somebody out of a bind.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, here's something else that we're doing as a church. We're getting ready to offer and provide a financial class through biblical literacy and true life application. I think every church needs to go and do a financial class that is going to help people. Because see, we as a church, we're trying to get out of debt. But before we do that, why don't we do this together, right? Why don't we get our spending habits in order? Live within your means. Okay.
Yeah.
I bought 3 years ago, I bought an espresso machine because I was spending about $350 to $380 a month in coffee. That's ridiculous. So we bought the espresso machine and I pulled the trigger, and then I bought a 5-pound bag of coffee for $100. And can I tell you that within the first year, within the first 2 months, we made our money back.
Yep.
The only time I consume coffee is when it is built in the budget. If me and Heather go to Seattle, I'm like, hey, do you think it's okay if I get a coffee today? And how many times a month or how many times a week do I go to Seattle with Heather? Maybe once.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm grabbing my coffee. I'm out the door. I'm sitting in my office. I've already had my quad shot. Hello. Shout out to one of my young adults. But how does Jesus make his coffee? He brews it.
He brews it.
So I'd rather he brew it over here in the Robinson Cafe. I'd rather he brew it. Because you know what? If I'm asking you to give money and you to trust me with it, you need to know that I'm trying to also be trusted with the finances in my home as well. And I love that you said, if anybody wants to see the books, schedule an appointment. I think you can be trusted with that. And I love that you do that. I think more churches should do that. Why hide? Or maybe you're not being a good steward, and maybe that's why you don't want to show anybody the books and what you're doing.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think, Go
ahead, and the hardest part of all of that, and in full transparency, full honesty, is the majority of the people who want to see the books don't give to the church. And I have a really hard time. Oh, I'm gonna sit you down. I'm gonna show you, right? Here's what comes in, here's what goes out. And then in that very same meeting, I'm gonna look you dead in the eye and I'm gonna be like, so why don't you support what God's doing here? Why aren't you being obedient to the Lord? Like, what, are you just here being nosy? Like, I'm real. I'm straight with them. Like, you just trying to be nosy, or are you trying to figure out how to invest in the kingdom of God? So, but we'll do it. We will sit down and have a meeting with somebody, because at the end of the day, we're here to grow the kingdom. We're not here to grow Pastor Wes or his salary and listen, I've been a senior pastor now at this church for almost 10 years, but in total, almost 15 years.
Yeah.
I've had 3 raises in 15 years, because it's not about me. It's not about me keeping up with the Joneses. It's not about, can Pastor West get. No, what can we do with the kingdom money to reach the people, right? And if your church is good, I feel like I should say it, but I don't want to say it so boldly.
I think you should say it boldly, bro.
If your church is good at building the kingdom, the finances will flow. If your church is not building God's kingdom, don't be surprised if you're struggling financially. Same thing in your own finances. If you're not trusting God with finances, don't be surprised that you struggle. Dang. Don't do it. Stop doing it. And take a step, take a second, take a minute and ask God to show you. Ask him. He will show you. I feel like this is a year of intentionality and boldness for me in 2025. And I have told many people that already. Try him. Trust God. Do it once. Yeah. And then let's pray together that God will fulfill his promise of opening up the doors and opening up the windows.
That's so cool.
Now I started this entire episode, but also my entire Entrusted series with the phrase, if you're having a hard time trusting God in stewardship, trust me, he's having a hard time trusting you. Because in Luke chapter 19, verse 21, 26, something like that, the parable of the manager, the end of that whole parable is this. To those who God has given and you have done well, he will give you more. To those who have not, he takes it away. Like, that's a biblical principle. And so I say it again. If you're having a hard time being a good steward of God's finances he gives you, and you're not building his kingdom, don't be surprised that you're struggling financially. Amen.
I will say this.
And then you can close us up.
Okay. You know, I think sometimes, like, I was looking at our youth room once again. 5 years ago, we come back and we were actually tasked. Isaiah you can remodel the room. If anybody's going to remodel the room, or if anybody's going to change it, I feel like you would be the one to do it. And I love the people who were there before me, and I love the youth pastors who were there before. I'm not a DIY guy. God has not given me that gift, and I'm okay with that. Like I can go to sleep at night knowing, you know what? I'm not a DIY kind of a person, but I'm thankful for businesses in our church that want to be a blessing.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for businesses that I want to bless, because now you're blessing. Like the guy who is blessing us and giving us a pretty sweet deal on revamping our wall and stuff. He's coming down and he's catching some pride in it, you know, and he's taking a look, and it's like, this dude is helping us, and now we're helping him. We're helping him financially. He's helping us financially. He's helping us aesthetically. Because I'll hear it, man, you guys got to upgrade this room. Okay, so then when we go to upgrade the room and we go to spend the money, why are you making comments? Why would you guys buy that? Like, don't do that to us. Don't make a dig. We need to upgrade, and then when we upgrade, you want to try to throw another dig. Why would you get that? So I'm thankful that it's taken Heather and I 5 years to here's what I'll say. At the right time, we are making the necessary changes. And as we are making the necessary changes, everybody else is on board with the change.
Okay.
I think Heather and I really had to establish who we were, to be trustworthy with the community of people who we were trusted to steward over. And then once they saw that we can steward and trust them with their souls, they saw what we could do financially. And as we are making those moves financially, not only is there buy-in, not only are they giving us ideas, I'm taking your suggestions and now we're implementing those suggestions. And guess what happens? Now you want to give more. Hey, they actually sat down. They actually heard what's going on. I actually saw the process. He showed me the PO. He showed me the receipt. I ain't got nothing to hide. It's right here. This is exactly how much it costs. And if we are a church, hear me, churches, hear me, pastor, hear me, senior pastor, hear me, youth pastor. We ought to do things in excellence. We should never do things mediocre. True accountability will never allow you to live a mediocre life. And we cannot allow ourselves to live a mediocre life when we have been called to be held accountable.
And true accountability, and in true accountability, there are no secrets. So put it up front, get it done. Show everybody what you're doing. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid.
I done just closed it. And I see that. And as we say here, when the coffee is done,
so is the episode.
Ooh, okay. Listen, that's a heavy hitter. That's a heavy hitter. I feel like because we took a break, we were allowed to go for 40 minutes. And so we don't ask for forgiveness. We just ask that you tune in and that you lean in, because I feel like we are going somewhere in this space.
I got a quick thing I want to do. This is something that I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the Holy Spirit. So Hope Church is giving away resources for those of you who want to take this step in this journey into stewardship. And I'm going to extend it here to Ministry Talks Podcast, because I feel like it's what God's telling me to do.
Wow.
I have a book called The Generosity Ladder by Nelson Searcy. If you want a copy, I'm not going to put a link in the description notes, but if you want a copy, email us. I'll send you one free of charge.
I want one.
I'll get you one. I got one sitting on my shelf right now. I can get you one. But if you want one, and you're watching this video, you've watched this long, not only do I want to bless you, I want to be obedient to the Lord. I just feel like I'm supposed to give away at least 5 or 10 of them. So I'm gonna buy some, and it's gonna be His cost and your blessing and your benefit. So there you go. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
I just pray that people lean into that, because you just answered somebody's prayer request, and I hope that they lean into that. Listen, we are getting intentional here in season 9 and the seasons to come with Ministry Talks Podcast. We are going to be talking about things that, is it going to be uncomfortable? Yeah. But is it going to be meaningful and impactful? Yeah. Is it going to be biblically correct? 100%. Is it going to challenge? 100%. Is it going to challenge us to maybe grow in our faith and our finances and in our walk with God? Yeah. Because in 2025, we can no longer compromise. We can no longer allow ourselves to just be mediocre. We can't. And so with the intentionality and the heart behind Ministry Talks Podcast, we have a mantra and a saying here. We don't know everything, but we are willing to walk with you through anything. And so with that being said, make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Email us at mintalkspodcast@gmail.com. Questions, thoughts, concerns. Maybe you want to hear more of this. Make sure you send an email to us so we can get you that resource to get that book in your hands.
That's right.
Also, we have another one, Back to Zero Devo, that we have here. Reach out to us and we'll get that to you. One of the things that Pastor Wes and I discussed offline, we'll bring it online here, is we're going to bring some more guests on and maybe have some conversations. And maybe what we do is we go revisit these topics and we just ask them questions. Who knows what this season is going to look like, but it's going to be led by God. We're going to be financially good stewards, because even when you guys are giving here, when you go to buymeacoffee.com/MenTalksPodcast, when you give here, we are just trying to be good stewards, and we want to make sure we stay on task with that. So we appreciate the support. If you're a one-time giver, thank you. If you're going to be somebody that continues to give, we appreciate that as well. Don't worry about what the next episode's going to be. Just show up and get ready for it. How about that?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey, we love you guys. Thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you next time.
Love you. Peace.